Welcome. We bid you welcome, John Clauser, Johnny Metal, the Metal Dad, coming to you from my music corner of the world, which got a little bit warmer, but then we keep going up and down like a yo-yo. We had 70 degrees the other day. It's like 45. What's going on with this weather? I have no idea. But I got John, the music nut, my faithful co-captain. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing well, and we had 56 degrees on Friday, and now it's snowing up a storm.
Go figure that out, right?
That's
Gotta
right.
you gotta love Mother Nature. But then our special guest, you've seen him on the Contrarians, you've seen him on when LP Tremors was doing some stuff, you've seen him on a few other things. Peter Jones. I think you're up in the Dakota, so you're probably thinking our weather is a heat wave right now. How
You
you
know,
doing, my
it's
friend?
it's it's a pleasure to be here. Nice to see both of you.
I see
It's
you too.
42 here right now, which is like unbelievably strange. And we have at the highest peak so far, haven't had over a foot of snow. It is the most unusual, kind of scary, because this
Hmm.
time last year we had about 17 feet. So
Wow.
something is going to happen, and we're afraid that it's going to all come in April and May.
Yikes. Yeah,
Mm.
that would not surprise me given that part of the now you're up in North Dakota or South Dakota?
North Dakota, we're
North
in
Dakota.
West Fargo, the Moorhead, Minnesota
Okay.
area. A little,
Right. Okay.
there's no more
So,
than a little more than a million of us in the whole state, so
well,
it's
there you
quiet.
go.
It's quiet up here.
Oh
You
yeah,
got you gotta love that.
absolutely.
Nothing wrong with that. But we're gonna turn the noise up a little bit, and we're gonna get loud up in this place because we're gonna be talking to some Judas Priest. The year of the priest, baby. That's what we're calling this series. So we are up to Hellbent for Leather, some areas, originally called Killing Machine, which there you go. There
That's
you
right.
go. There you go. So all right. So this one got to 128 on the Billboard charts, reached number 32 on the UK charts, and got up to 62 on the Japanese charts. Does eventually go platinum in Canada and gold in the United States, of course, based on just shipping figures and stuff of that nature. So, without further ado, first of all, I'm going to turn to our guest here, Peter, and just tell us how you got into Priest. What was it about the band that you got introduced to? How many times you've seen them live, stuff of that nature, and then we're going to let you have the first crack at the album tracks and stuff of that nature. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Well, wonderful. Thank you, John. And again, pleasure to be here. My priest experience started when my buddy and I purchased Sad Wings in '76. When we had a weekly ritual. His last name was Z, and so he would start at one end, I would start at A, and we'd just go through miscellaneous bins because that's where all the new stuff was if it didn't have its own label. And we found the cover, which looked really kind of cool. And of course, it had some very small but kind of live shots in the back. We're like, this can't be too bad. And of course, we took it home and instantly fell in love with it. So we were buying everything in real time after that. I'm sure I either got it the week of or the week after because we rarely missed 2 weeks in a row. We would go every Friday afternoon or Saturday and just repeat our ritual. And so we were waiting and we picked up the new one. And it's one of my favorite albums. This is the era that is my go-to. Sorry, I don't have the appropriate t-shirt. I'm a little ahead of things, but I had to get my logo in there somewhere. This is a great period for me. I eagerly watched your previous show, and I think it's important when we talk about an album to look what came before it. Stained Class is my favorite Priest record. So I was very anxious and eager when this came out, and I was not disappointed on any level. But there are things have changed here. There's quite a few things that have changed. To me, this is Judas Priest. This is the definition. This is where everything coalesces. This is the look changes. And when you're talking about how much, folks, that's what they used to look like.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, that's a far cry from that, which went even further and turned into that. So it really did change. And specifically, our Mr. Friend, Mr. Halford. This has always been one of my favorite photos of all time. I mean, is there anything that is just simply more metal than that? I don't think so. Oh, wait, yes, there is. Put him on a bike.
Right.
Right? Okay. So we've seen the visuals are here. The music was really already going there on Stained Class. But now we have, like I said, this blending and everything starts to align. Lyrics are different. The content is different. They're away from a little more, I don't want to say overtly fantasy, but slightly. This is totally different. They've gone from PG to, and they'll continue to keep going up the escalator there. There's a lot of double entendres here. This is metal / sex, sex / metal. You decide which is which, because both of them can make sense. So when we start, we get to the opening track, and Delivering the Goods starts out with this great 16th note hi-hat and this heavy bass drum on 2 and 4 and this killer riff. And it's just, you can hear that it's right on the edge of feedback, which in the studio is such a glorious thing, because you know that those guitars are real and organic, and you're just getting the tubes and you can just kind of feel it surging, and off it goes, and it's very heavy. And one of the things I want to talk about is a common thread through here is that a lot of the knock on metal is that it's kind of, I don't want to say dumbed down, but it's maybe lesser, musician wise, which I think is nonsense. It's just nonsense. What happens throughout this record, and it's especially prevalent in the Les Binks era, and it happened in the previous record, there is syncopation through this and this whole album to just absurd levels. It's so beautiful. And if you don't know what syncopation is, it's when you play accents off the main beat that help punch or give a flavor or flow. This whole album's full of it, and Les Binks was a master at it. It's almost like punches in a big band where something comes up and you're hitting something. I won't belabor that. So off it goes, and it's thundering away. And one of the things I love about what they're doing here is they get to the chorus, they've got this halftime. All of a sudden, it just feels like, and then what happens is that the chug and the chunk is alive and well here, and it's so easy to hear. One of the things is because Les is kind of a lesser busy player, and people go, no, he's got fills all over the place. Yeah, he does. But listen to his drumming. This whole song, he never once goes to his ride cymbal. Not once. He plays a hi-hat through the whole song. And he does that through most of this album. Dave Holland kind of carried that on too. You never saw Dave over on his ride. Well, what does that do, folks? Well, it leaves a crap load of space for the guitars to take over that sonic spectrum, because you're not washing and taking over that area and masking what they're doing. I love where they're going. We get to the halftime. Glenn's solo is crushing. I want to highlight the lyric here, because what were we saying? Well, how are things different? This is one of my favorites. Well, we don't pull no punches. We aim where the crunch is, bound to do most damage to your brain. If you're looking for it mellow, if you're nothing more than mellow, gonna do it again and again. Gonna beat you into submission. You might as well surrender. You're gonna learn your lesson, because there ain't nobody here to defend your heart. And then off he goes. Now, goes back to what I just said. You can decide chicken or egg, sex, music, music, sex, your choice. Both of them could apply. Goes back, right into the verse, heavy. I love the thing. And the great drum fills at the end from Les. Great opener. Just a great opening track, and one of the real standouts of their career. And then right into Rock Forever, which has this thunderously opening riff. I love how they do that. Glenn starts, KK joins him, which is a Priest-staple, because they're so good at playing together in both a unison form or in separate form. And when they play together, and you can really hear it on Unleashed, and we'll talk about that next episode, but it is so thick and so heavy, it sounds like one person, but you want it to sound like two, and it does, but it's so cohesive. It's just really great. But now we've got double bass and a ride cymbal coming on here, so it's already gone up a notch. It feels more propulsive. It's heavier. We get into the chorus area again, way more syncopation. They're punching all unison and super tight. We get to the bridge. John, Mr. Music Nut here, you have very accurately pointed out how Priest is so adept at using bridges to, by definition, I don't mean pun intended, to bridge a section, in this case, choruses in a lot of cases, into the solo section or post-solo section back into the last verse. And they are really, really good at it. And it always gives it just that little lift and that little push that keeps it from being stagnant. And that cleans your palate, and boom, you go right back to the verse, and it sounds familiar again, and you're glad you're there. Great dual lead here, but it's short. It's only 8 bars. So the focus here is the composition. It's not a bunch of extraneous soloing and everything. Just another really great track. A lot of energy, really powerful, and just a lot of fun. Evening Star is one of the first Divergents, and this is a very transitional album. Again, we talked about all the reasons why, but I think that there are a lot of elements in here that move it into where British Steel goes. And to me, Evening Star is the first kind of foray into that. This has the same essence of, like, you don't have to be old to be wise, or something like that. It's got that feel. It's melodic. It's not overly heavy, but you feel the power with it. It's a great, great track. And when you get past the solo section, go to their bridge, and listen as it breaks down. Listen to Ian Hill's bass playing. First of all, I have to say, from a sonic standpoint, this is probably my favorite album for Ian's playing. It's much more forward in the mix. It's much clearer to hear, and this is not an accident. Well, who's producing it? You guys have already mentioned Mr. Guthrie in the previous. Well, if you listen, go back and listen to how legato, and that means how smooth the notes are. They sustain. It's got a Roger Waters element to it, folks. It's got that Pink Floyd feel where the bass works like that. It's very tasty, and it really sounds really clean. And he became more irrelevant later on sonically. The guitars kind of pushed him out of the sonic palette, which I thought was a shame, because he's a really solid bass player. But it's a good track. There's nothing on it that I listen to and go, well, that doesn't kind of fit. That's, it works. I like the change of pace, and I didn't have a problem at all with the more commercial direction they had gone, that they go to later on. Well, we get to Hellbent for Leather, right? It's the calling card, right? We already showed the motorcycle. It's the track. We get the big, heavy double bass intro and the crushing riff, and off it goes. And what's nice is that they do the first part of the verse with only single bass drum. To get to the second part of the verse, the double bass comes in, which is a beautiful lift. But then they don't overdo it. They get back to the chorus, hell-bent for leather, and then here's all this syncopation. And I love that. They could have kept the double bass through there, but it would have started to get redundant, and it wouldn't have made those punches as clean or as tight. So from a compositional and a choice from what Les is playing, perfect. I love what he's doing here. Black as Night, Faster Than a Shadow, Crimson Flare from a Raging Sun, an exhibition, sheer precision, yet no one knows from where he comes. That's Rob. That's Rob. Those lyrics have teeth. They've got edges to them. They're cutting. And his diction never seems to get enough praise. He's so easy to understand. And also we get more double bass. We get this beautiful bridge section. And we get Glenn's solo. And I'm going to make a little note here, and I don't know if you agree or not. We have what I think is kind of the Van Halen influence here. While he is technically still picking with his right hand, he's not tapping. The sonics of it sound like you're tapping. And to me, that's either a nod or a tribute or something to say, hey, you know what? We understand that this Eddie guy might be onto something here. And it fits the song perfectly, and it just drives and drives. It's a classic tune. Never get tired of hearing it. It's always fun to hear. And Glenn really hit it out of the park as both a composition and his solo section. Take On the World. It's a heavy double bass pattern here. There's no leads in it. It's kind of anthemic. It's got what I call kind of like the shout chorus, where every voice is in unison, and and it ends with a gong. You can't have a problem with a gong. I love gongs. I think that it really doesn't go anywhere because this one really doesn't have something to take it doesn't change rhythmically. It doesn't change compositionally. It kind of just works its way through. I think this would have worked better as an album closer. Instead of the last track on side one, because I think that kind of hit it off the rail a bit, because they were really getting into a nice flow. But that's just a small point, because we flipped the record over and we've got probably my favorite Priest track of all time, Burning Up. This is just a ferocious lick. Once we get the kind of little electronic space sound that builds in the crescendo, and there is nothing ordinary about what Les Binks is doing on drums. This is funky as heck. It is almost rhythmically more like Carl plays with Toto than a metal drummer does in a metal band, and the riff wraps around it like the perfect coat of armor. It is so perfect. More heavy syncopations, power chords, and then chunking riffs afterwards. Rob, in this track, really utilizes a part of his voice that often doesn't get talked about. It's his lower range.
Yes.
Everybody talks about how high he can go. Absolutely. And it's a glorious thing and very unique. We know that. But it is balanced by this really rich, and as he got older, it got even better, because all male voices drop as we get older and our lower ranges become more thicker and richer. And I loved Tim Owens, not getting the weeds, and I loved he could nail the high stuff. But his lower range, and Rob's got a lot of different voices, never quite worked on the lower material. And this is the perfect track for Rob in that lower range. And it doesn't lose energy. It doesn't lose power. It just cuts through everything. I know you feel the same. I know you feel the flame stirring deep inside of you, burning you up, breaking you down. That section, I could hear it over. And then suddenly you know that you're burning up. And I said, it unleashes my favorite Judas Priest moment of all time. Those tight, aggressive punches into this wicked solo section. I love this track. And I think it needs to be moved up the list of some people's favorites, but it's a personal choice. I have no trouble putting it way up high. We get to the Manalishi, right, with a two-pronged crown. You mentioned Diamonds and Rust when you were dealing with that. Here we go again, another cover that instantly has made Priests. It's a Priest song now. And it's just so well constructed. It's so perfectly played. I love the driving, the drums. And a part of it that gets overlooked is that when they go to the guitar section between a verse and a chorus, Les Binks goes over to 16th notes on the hi-hat. Now you could call that the disco beat, but there's nothing disco about this, but it just changes it just enough. And the exchange in solos between Glenn, and KK might be one of my favorite guitar exchanges between the two of them of their entire career. They're just absolutely stunning and glorious for us that they reproduced those live exactly the way they did them on the record. It's just a perfect track. Love how it ends at the end, a nice high sing-along, if you will, but it's short, sweet, to the point, and it's all Priest. Works perfect for me. Killing Machine is the one that's got one of the most different tempos. This is heavy and plodding, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's slow and aggressive, and it's just thick. It's got weight. And you get there and there's all these little subtle guitar licks that come in at the end of a verse or a line inside the verse. You get a feedback over here or a little lick tail over there. I like the bridge. You finally get some double bass in there a little bit. I think it's an underappreciated track. It's not fast. It's not up tempo, but that's okay. It doesn't need to be. And again, it's a nice change of pace, especially after Manalishi. I think it fits really, really nice. And I think this is an underrated and underappreciated track. Then we get to one of my favorites, Running Wild. This is just, what an opening riff. Holy smokes. And again, here you can really tell live, especially starts in one channel. Right after, here comes the other one, and then the thickness and the fullness of it just instantly slams you right in the face. And here, you've got these beautifully subtle open hi-hat things that Les Binks is doing, which is not typically done in hard rock and metal. Usually you get a slammer back there who kind of just undelicately kind of just bashes through stuff. That's not Les. And that's not the way he plays. Tons of syncopation through. And then what's great is he says, when I'm running wild, going right back to the verse, goes over to the ride cymbal, it colors, and then right back. So bridge is great. I love the ending. Is just kind of crazy whammy bar mayhem, which is fun. You can't have enough whammy bar in Priest. And it's just like, and live, oh my gosh, that's a staple. That's a great track. Before the Dawn is beautifully done. It's, if you don't appreciate Rob singing on this, I'm not sure you're a Rob fan. Everybody's got their personal choices, but it's so well done. It's so beautifully performed. And KK's tone is just glorious. It's got just enough edge on it that it's not too much, but it's big and it's lyrical and it sustains nicely and really holds up to what Rob is singing. And this is the track that I wish was in the 5th spot on the album. So I would have traded this with Take on the World and put Before the Dawn right there. And I think it really would have flowed better, but it's just perfection vocally. And it just, again, shows how masterful Rob is as a singer. Evil Fantasies. This is very droney. And the first thing I notice is how different the drums sound. They're much more compressed. They're much more reverberant. They have more of that Defenders of the Faith kind of sound to them, of which I would suggest Heavy Duty kind of comes to mind. And they sound like they're, maybe relatives that were separated at one point. One was done earlier and one was done later, but they do sound a lot alike. And this style would show up more so on Defenders than I think any of them. It's probably my least favorite vocal performance from Rob on this album, and one of my least favorite. He's got a lot of that thing, and then he's too good of a singer to do things like that, in my opinion. You get when you get that breakdown after, Give Me Evil, and it breaks down, to me, that's very reminiscent of Rock-a-Rolla era. It's got that kind of flair and that feel to it before they go right back into the rest of the track, pick up double time, and it kind of heads out. So, interesting track. I hate the word filler. There is no filler. It's either on the album or it isn't, and you either care for the track or you don't. So, if we do Fight for Your Life, it's just a little nod. It's just really kind of more of a demo. I mean, because it turns into Rock Hard Ride Free, and that will be addressed when you get to Defenders. So, I love this record. I've got Stained Class at a 10. And anybody who watches my rankings knows I can't have two records with the same rating, because to me, how can one be a 10 if there's another one that it's a 10, then it's really not my favorite. So usually everything is like 0.25 away from each other. So this is a 9.75 to me. The highs are so high, and it's just such a great record. And to me, this is the sound of Priest that I enjoy the most. So that's my view of Killing Machine / Hellbent for Leather.
Love it. So for those of you who may never have seen Peter Jones on a show before, he knows his musician knowledge, and the idea of playing in a band and the drumming and all that, because he's a drummer, as you can tell. But there's a lot of stuff he knows about this. So I'm like, yes, we got to get this kind of input for this. So thank you. Great analysis there.
You're kind. Thank you.
John the Music Nut. Let's let you have some. Let's see what you can follow up with.
Oh, let's see what I can follow up with. How do you follow that? That was awesome.
I gotta follow you both. So
that was awesome, Peter. That was awesome, because I'm here shaking my. I'm nodding so much, and I'm known for nodding when I hear something and I'm thinking the same thing, but I'm nodding over and over again because either it's in my head or it's written down on this piece of paper here. So I'm going to try my best not to repeat too much, because Pete said a lot of things that I was thinking. So I'll try to talk about some things that haven't been addressed yet. This is one of my favorite albums by Priest. This is the sweet spot for me as far as their music. Delivering the Goods, fantastic opener. It's driving. You say those drums just come out and they just take you right in. And your points about Ian on this album, Pete, that's absolutely it. I mean, you can
spot on.
Eventually you really couldn't hear Ian.
No. Yeah.
But here you still could, and it is an excellent example of what a solid bass player he really is. Rock Forever, there's a lot of cool there's a few different riffs in this song, and they're all really strong. I was talking about the bridges, and thank you, Peter, for saying for acknowledging that how the bridges are really important in this band.
You were spot on, so
thanks. So, but here it's just the bridge is just rah, 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 forever. And then Rob ad-libbing. But it still works like a charm, no matter how simple it is. It works. It's fantastic. Evening Star, I think this song should have broke Priest. It should have gotten AOR play. It was released as a single in the UK. It hit number 53. I love how you got the atmospheric first verse, and then the second verse, it gets rocking again. And then after the solo, and when that note just fades into the distance, it goes right back into that atmospheric part again with Rob. Fantastic. And then they raise it up a step at the end in the outro. And when Rob is going, Evening Star, I can see the lights. So that, I think, really makes the song work very well too. I think this should have been a bigger hit. Yeah, it's more melodic. It's a different Priest. It's what we're going to hear more of as time goes on. I think this is excellent. One thing I did write about this album, here they became craftsmen. They did, like they took their sound, they made it more accessible, but it was still heavy. But people who would dismiss heavy metal can get into this and then explore further, because this is heavy but very melodic. All the performances are very strong. It doesn't destroy you. It's not like a big sound of noise or anything. It's just very well done. All the songs are very good. I think even the last track I quite like quite a bit. Hellbent for Leather, this is one of their most enduring tracks. Their second most played song, according to Setlist FM. For years, this was their encore. And Rob comes out on the Harley, you know what's coming. Wicked heavy metal here. Very fast, again, pre-thrash in its delivery. Excellent track. Another great bridge in here. We got all this going on, this like 2.5 minute song. It hits you with everything the Priest is so good at is right here, and it's very quick. Take on the World. They were trying to write an anthem. They're trying to do like a We Will Rock You.
Right.
And that march beat. I love that song. I love that. Love this song. Love that part. And I did write, yep, they go Chuck Barris at the end with the gong, so but again, we got another fantastic song. And all the voices in unison, as you would describe, Pete, that really works very well. Number 14 hit in the UK. This was their first big hit in the UK. Burning Up. Yep. Rob has a great low range. That fantastic bridge where he sounded so intimate, sexual, and then meanwhile the atmosphere from the guitars there. That under Rob's voice works very well. And then that before it goes into the solo.
It just builds so much anticipation. It's just, you're just like, and then it just unleashes. And it's just like a big wave of release on it. It's just.
What a rhythm set. Like listen to Les and Ian there, that rhythm section. I mean, they're not just doing like what Ian would do later. That is nasty. That is a great groove.
Yeah.
Awesome. Green Man Lishi, the third song in a row, they would make their own. If you listen to the original is actually heavy. It's a heavy song. It's a slower song. But here they make it more of a fist pumping anthem. And they made it their own. They put it out on Unleashed in the East. It's their number 8 most played song according to Setlist FM. Spectacular song. I love Rob's screams at the end during the outro. Awesome. They made it a lot tighter too, because this is over a minute shorter than the original version. Excellent song. Killing Machine. That's just really menacing. Wicked riff on that. Excellent track. We got another bridge in here too. And this is going to continue there, folks. I mean, as we go into the albums in the 80s, the strength of their bridges continues to be there. Even if they were simplifying their sound, the bridges were still there and still bringing these songs up a notch. Running Wild, fantastic. I discovered this on Unleashed in the East. I bought this album. I was trying to think to myself, when did I pick this album up? And then I see the BMG serial number. It'll begin with a letter and then six numbers. I'm thinking, okay, this was probably around mid-2000s that I picked this up. And I do have the remastered version. But Running Wild, full of venom and vigor. Partying song, another killer riff, another killer bridge with No One Can Hold Me Down, and that part again, you get the best of Priest in less than 3 minutes. And grabs you by the throat, doesn't let go. Before the Dawn, no drums. It's just acoustic guitar, organ and the keys. That's Glenn Tipton playing them. It's, it takes the mood down. It's like a goth-like ballad. It's very good. I never really thought about placements, the sequencing here, but it's weird. Like, I'm so used to it being near the end, but I don't know, maybe it would work at Take on the World. Because, like you said, with Take on the World and its placement on the album and everything that's around it, it kind of gets lost in the shuffle, even though it's such a strong track. But Before the Dawn, excellent song. Evil Fantasies, I quite like. I mean, yes, it's more mid-tempo, super graphic, no doubt about that. But even when it gets really plotting in the middle, and then even the guitars from Glenn and KK, they're really sparse, but they work perfectly.
Right.
That's the thing. They were really playing for the song at this point. And you saw that more as time goes on. But like again, craftsmanship. What's best for the song? That's what really works throughout this album, and it certainly works on Evil Fantasies. I wrote here, for a transition album, it's amazing. All these bridges are still here. Rob didn't need a thesaurus at this point, but the lyrics were still very strong. It was stuff that everyone can relate to. I give it a 10. And now my thing we're here Peter and I would differ. I totally respect where he's going. Maybe I give this a 10, but that'd be my 10. Maybe the next one would be a 9.75. Me, it would be more like it depends on the day.
Right.
So this is an album that has been my number one Judas Priest album, and then there's other days it might be my 2 or 3. To give you a little idea of how many 10s I'm going to have here.
Right.
But yeah, to me, this is a 10. This you're not familiar with. One thing about this album, I have to say, I think it kind of gets ignored a little bit when we talk about the great albums, because this is where, again, I said before, they became craftsmen here, but we always hear about the ones with the big hits. We talk about British Steel. We talk about Screaming for Vengeance, Defenders of the Faith. And, even Stained Glass, I think over time, you hear more about Stained Glass these days. And fantastic album. I gave it a 10 last week. This one kind of gets lost in the shuffle, but I think this album should have broken. I think if they did the RIAA certifications here in the States, I wonder if this is a platinum now. Because it probably took forever to go gold. When I hear 128 on the Billboard charts, I'm like, God, it seems low.
Right.
But Unleashed, I think, which went to 70, and I think that one, I believe, is a platinum certification. It has to be.
Yep.
I think a lot of people, they may have discovered some of these songs on Unleashed, and maybe they didn't work their way back. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, to me, this is clearly one of their best. Very accessible, very exciting. They became craftsmen. Fantastic performances all the way around. Yeah, couldn't recommend it more highly. 10 for Hellbent for Leather / Killing Machine. There you go.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. Well, gosh, what can I add to all this fun stuff? Right, as they say in Monty Python land. Delivering the goods. These are my simple notes. What an opener. That riff, that groove, Les Banks exclamation point.
Right.
Basically the passion for the live show. You get on that stage and you go out there and you just kick some tail. To me, that's what that song is. Every time I listen to this song, I'm like, good, delivering the good. You know, I'm just like I'm getting into it. People in the next car over to me, they'll look at me like I'm lost my mind. That's just what this song does. It delivers the goods. Rock Forever. I'm gonna be kind of like you guys. I'm not gonna beleaguer a lot of points because you guys have made an excellent point on all of these. But Rock Forever, one thing I noticed a little bit of it here is for all you Boston fans, there's that little bit of a almost like a smoking kind of a vibe going on in there.
Mm.
Okay, is that just me or
No, you're onto something there.
okay?
Because smoking has not to get in the weeds here, a quarter note kind of light shuffle feel with a rolling triplet. That's rock. That's, you know, you are dead on. Dead on.
That's right.
That's right. Of course, you get the dual guitars. This is a song that goes out to the fans, basically just, you know, with the power of the power of music. You know, let's I can't live with my you gotta rock forever, you know. Evening Star. Here's another one that I thought, did I just suddenly hear Ringo Starr's It Don't Come Easy? Or is that just my imagination? That little guitar chord in the beginning there, you know, I was like, weird things that comes into my mind with these things.
Okay.
I think again, simply a simpler song musically, slower solo section. Boy, try to say that fast a few times. Apparently I can't do it. You know, I think we've all been at that point in our own lives where we're having to kind of look for something to help guide us along in life, you know. And in this particular case, they're talking about the Evening Star. You know, it could be whatever you choose to get you through those times. But I think we've all been through those tough times in some way, shape, or form. Hell Bent for Leather, come on. Do we even need to talk about this live staple? Rebellious, fearless, so you know, a Glenn just a Glenn solo composition here. Again, what I don't need to say anything more about it. Take on the World. I think you guys said it best. Basically, Judas Priest here trying to sound like we will rock you. But I do love that tribal march beat. That is a really good crowd anthem. So you can definitely hear this at a concert with no problem. Burn It Up. I didn't get too intense with this one. I basically said, groovy sex song. Love Banks's drumming here. Yeah, and that's basically all I wrote with this. I love the grooves with it. Yeah, Rob starts getting pretty intense with those lyrics here. We'll start seeing a little bit more of this as we go along. But again, still good track. Still a good track. Green Banalishi, again, another song. Do we truly need to talk about this song? But you know, again, I think it's just what that power of that green stuff, the green things that hides in our wallets, and what power it has over us when we get a little too much of it sometimes. I think it's really kind of what that kind of song kind of delves really far into. But I mean, classic, absolute classic. They made it their own. And again, nothing much more I need to say about it. Killing Machine. Yeah, basically a hitman with no remorse. You get this very groovy blues riff rocker to me. I just thought I just kind of love the dun 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 dun. I love all that stuff. I thought it was that's when you guys were talking about that, that's kind of when I was bobbing my head back and forth to it. Great, another good track. Running Wild, living life with unbridled abandon and rebellion and confident, proud, hedonistic, energetic, and you know, admire the strength. Maybe a little Deep Purple influence musically. I don't know. Feel like there's a little bit of that. Another chugging riff rocker. Before the Dawn. a song about longing and heartbreak, a topic Rob seemed to tackle a lot. There's
Oh,
always
yes.
like Last Rose of Summer kind of delved in that. And a few songs like that comes to mind. I said in the last episode, to me, I think Beyond the Realms of Death was the Priest ballad. And I think some people would argue that maybe this was. I think I kind of go both. I could see arguments for both. This is a very tender song. And to me, actually, I would have been okay if that would have closed the album out. I didn't need Evil Fantasies. That's kind of like, I thought, to me, it was just like, I don't know, something they felt the need to wake the people up from the nice tender slumber and end it on a heavier note. To me, very almost AC/DC Zepp like riff going on here. Again, you get the sex music lyrics here. Uh, yeah, I don't know why Rob needed aggressive vocal, but like you had already mentioned, Peter. But that's what closes the album out. To me, this album is marked by, I said four. I think I'm gonna say more like maybe about half of like just absolute great songs. And then you got a few others that are still trying to catch up a little bit. That's kind of how I took this impression with this album. I think there's I think like you was what's the word you guys were using? Foreman? What was it?
I said craftsman.
Craftsman, thank you.
Right.
The craftsmen at the blueprints, and they're still tweaking all the blueprints.
Mhm.
And those tweaks are still coming strong. And I think this album is still showing that. Um, is it a perfect 10 for me? No. I go a little lower with this one. I'm more like an 8.5 because there's are songs here that I'm like, the blueprints are still building, but they're just like I said, the highs are so high that like I said, those other songs are still just trying to catch up. One thing also I noticed, this album is bookmarked by, or it's bookended by songs of the same length, and those are the longest songs on the album. 4 minutes, 16 seconds. After that, 319, 406, 241, 3 minutes, 407, 323, 301, 258, 323. This is a short album for Priest. Even with the Green Manalishi, which wasn't originally on Killing Machine at first.
Right.
You at that point you had a 35-minute album length, which was, I guess, pretty much pretty much for the norm at that time. You have that punk aggression, which is still prevalent yet at that point. So they made the songs more, not necessarily punk like, but they definitely made them more energetic with the heaviness, and then the more accessible of this in the commercial songwriting. So it's you like I said, the craftsmen honing their craft, tweaking those blueprints, as I keep alluding to. So yeah, I'm more of an 8.5 with this one, but it's a strong 8.5. And I'm probably going to get lambasted in the comments for that one.
Who cares?
So there you go. Okay, Peter, did you not, or did you not get to see them on this tour?
I did not.
Okay.
And this is a common tale with me. I've said this on other shows when we've talked about what you've seen and what you haven't seen. I was a very busy musician, even still in high school and especially in college. And the running joke is that a lot of times performers don't see other performers because we're working the same schedules. We're just in different places, and me in a much lower scale, but Saturdays and Fridays and things like that, I was out playing. They were here a couple times, and I say here, I was in the Chicago area at the time. They came through. Where did my note go? Well, I had it there. There we go. They came through in April of '78. They were at a club called Beginnings, and that's an interesting place because that used to be run by Chicago drummer Danny Serafing. And if you
Okay.
read Danny's book, you can see that it may have had, I would say, allegedly mob ties and other stuff to it. But it was in the Western Burbs, and it was a prominent rock club. Scorpions, all these bands played there when they weren't big enough to play Chicago Stadium or the International Amphitheater yet. But I wasn't old enough then to go to that one, because that was not an all ages, because that was an alcohol place. Couldn't go. They came through in June 15th of 78 with Kiss. Wasn't available for that. Came through May 4th in 79 at the Amphitheater on the Killing Machine tour. And the next subsequent tours, I was at summer music camp for 8 weeks and wasn't around. And I'm getting letters from my buddy Joe, Mr. Z, who was drawing me pictures of what the stage looked like and fun stuff like that. So I did not see them until Rob rejoined the band. I never saw him during that period. I've seen him, I don't know how many times, maybe three or four if I count. And I've seen Halford, his solo band, a couple times, and that's a story for another day. So no, I never got to see the Primera, and which is disappointing. But it's the way it was. But
Well,
I make up for it and digging out bootlegs and finding as much live material as I can. So.
well, y'all heard my confession from last episode. I never got to see Priest.
Yeah.
And so it just, for whatever reason, it just always eluded me. Either I wasn't at the right place at the right time, or I didn't know about it, or I was too far of a travel, or whatever it was. It just never happened. And I know, and maybe this is just me, because I guess I've fallen in love with the KK Glenn back and forth. But to see them now without that, it's making it a very hard sell for me to want to, because they are coming to Alabama in Huntsville, which is about 2 hours away from me. But it's just, without KK and Glenn, it's just making it a very hard sell for me to want to see that, because I don't know how much Andy plays leads with now these days.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah. As far as live goes, it's hard to really, I know it's mostly Richie, but it's, Andy's probably more holding the riff down and stuff like that. So I'm like, I would miss that back and forth interplay stuff. And so I'm like,
yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. So it's, yeah. But yeah, I should be, but I have a feeling when they are playing in Alabama, that I probably will be up in Pennsylvania around that same period of time, because I think Priest dates like May 7th, and there's a show John and I are talking about, and I think it's on May 4th. Correct?
It's on May 2nd.
May 2nd. Okay, so yeah, so depending on how long I go to visit my folks back home, well, I'm gonna try to go up to see Saxon and Uriah Heep, and because they're gonna be playing up in our neck of the my old neck of the woods, John's neck of the woods, and so and it would be a good chance for the two of us to hang out. So we haven't worked that out. I haven't done it yet, but I'm working those logistics. But anyway, that's a different tangent. John, what other kind of tour info have you got? Oh, one thing I forgot to mention. It's still, you can't probably see
Robert.
It's still Robert.
Well,
Still Robert Alford.
And I think that back cover is important, John, because our other friend John, Mr. Music Nut, made an interesting point. It does seem like it's kind of a flyover album. You come through Sad Wings, you get there, and you're like, oh, you get to Stained Class, and then you jump to British Steel.
Mm-hmm.
I think several things are in play here. First of all, I think that's the worst picture of Rob I've ever seen in my life. It doesn't even remotely look like him.
Mm-mm.
He looks like a mountain man from the Pacific Northwest about ready to chop down some trees.
Yeah.
That is not the metal image that we were seeing in the photo I showed you.
I would much rather have seen that as your back cover personally, but you would have been
Yeah.
able to get less in the picture for credits.
I think it took a number of years, and Japan jumped on it first, like they often do. I think Priest's transition in the look and everything, I don't think they knew how to market them. I don't think they had any clue how to present them. There wasn't really this full-on essence of metal. That came later. And of course, by the time you get to Vengeance, okay, everybody just goes, that's it. Priest did this. That's the look. And then now everybody else looks like that. But it took a couple years. And I don't think that they had an idea really what to do with them. You know, if they've got this kind of look, you know, on the cover and everything in 79, do you scare everybody to death? I don't know. But we get to the next record, the cover of Unleashed is universally acknowledged. There's the look. There it is. And they're in full bloom at this stage. But it took the Japanese to bring it back to us to tell us, hey, look, we're kind of missing the boat here. And of course, by British Steel, they're totally into it. So I think there's just this little lag. They were going where they wanted to go, but the industry didn't know what to do with them and didn't know where to put them or place them until a visual medium like MTV showed up. And now you can show them. And now you go, oh, okay, I get it now. I hear what I have thought I've been hearing. And that in some cases is people's first look at Judas Priest.
It was with me. For me, it was thank goodness it was you got another thing coming and not hot rockin'.
Right. that's
But we'll save that for another time.
That's right. So, and then, you know, like I said, by the time they were playing the 83 concert from Memphis from the Vengeance tour, which they played a lot on weekends, there was no question that Rob now was the metal god.
Yeah.
And before he's Robert. Robert. So
yes,
I think so.
And Ian's wearing a white shirt. How often do you see white shirts in metal?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I got nothing.
Right.
Well, and it's interesting that Glenn has the Les Paul because it was his black Strat that had the dual humbuckers in it with the mirror pickguard and his reflected pickguard SG that were the two that I saw picture after picture after picture and didn't see him with the Les Paul much. And that's interesting. It's kind of like that weird irony that, you know, Ace Frehley's, you know, got the guitar he, you know, that Stanley has the guitar he has on the cover of Kiss Alive, where you didn't often see him play. You know, he had his Flying V all the time. But it was like, well, the guitars were all over the other arena because they went off to do the photo shoot and then the other gear was somewhere else. So maybe he just grabbed what he had to take a picture. But it's interesting how that developed. So I think it's an interesting point how they maybe lagged behind, at least marketing wise.
Exactly.
All right, go ahead, John. Let's hear a little bit of tour stuff with this one.
One more thing I do have to mention that Saxon and Uriah Heep show at Penn's Peak. Our friend Mr. Nick Esquire will be there too. I got his tickets.
Ooh.
So here we go. I lowballed how many shows they played for this tour when we were off camera. They did 166 shows for this album. This is the most shows they've done for an album. And they've been playing around 100 shows for an album on some of their later tours. But 81 shows in the United States, 2 in Canada, 77 in Europe, and 6 in Japan. Now, on this one, because there's so many dates, I'm only going to talk about the ones that had songs listed on Setlist FM. For this tour, they played the following songs live off of Hellbent for Leather or Killing Machine: Delivering the Goods, Rock Forever, Hellbent for Leather, Take on the World, Green Man Unleashing a Two-Pronged Crown, Running Wild, and Evil Fantasies. Their first show was at Top of the Pops in London. And then they did their shows in Japan. They did 4 in Tokyo and 2 in Osaka. The show that was at Tokyo Kosei Nenken Kaikon was the show that was recorded for Unleashed in the East.
Right.
That was on February 15, 1979. So after those shows, they play AG Hall in Allentown. And no, they didn't have songs listed, but I had to mention
Ag
it.
Hall. What's
In
the
fact,
date? What's the date on that Ag Hall one? Just out of curiosity.
I don't have the.
Oh, it doesn't
date.
tell you.
Well, they actually played twice at AG Hall. The second one was Halloween of '79.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, the first one I don't have.
Peter,
played...
the Ag Hall that we're talking about. So I grew up near Allentown.
Okay.
So that's like my home base area. And
Right.
so Ag Hall is very close to, there's like a big complex. They have like a big fairgrounds. There's like a farmer's market. There's all these kind of little things. They have a fair there, like around the end of August into September, right before Labor Day. And Ag Hall was usually, it was, from what my brother told me, I never saw a concert there. He said, but my brother has seen a few concerts there, and he said it was a terrible place for concerts. But I'm a wrestling fan, and as John is as well. And one of the first times I ever got to go to a wrestling show was at Ag Hall, because
okay.
way back in the day, back then it was still, I think, WWF did a lot of TV tapings at Ag Hall. So they would do their weekly programming there. And so, like, the first time I ever saw wrestling in person was at one of these particular shows at Ag Hall. So,
right.
yeah, my brother said, yeah, terrible place to see a show though. It was just too loud, and the stage, it was just a terrible place for a stage, and yeah, it just wasn't a good place. So sorry.
Yeah. We had a place we had several places in Chicago. The big one's the International Amphitheater, that had been there for decades and decades and decades. I mean, they had conventions there, but like Frank Sinatra would play there, and Sabbath would play there, and I mean, everybody under the sun. And it was just in the most god-awful, unsafe neighborhood in the history of unsafe neighborhoods.
Oh,
and it was just, you'd swear that they were particles of brick that would fall when people were playing, but it just had this crazy atmosphere to it that was just so glorious. I have so many memories of shows there that it just has this attitude about it. And it changed when they finally shut it down and you go to the new spanking modern facility, and it just seemed kind of watered down and homogenized. Yeah, I have better bathrooms and I don't have to, all this, but I'm like, the feel is different. Sometimes those little places with a lot of mold and grunge and sludge on them help contribute to what you're experiencing. So,
yep. What would they call those, the dumps, the absolute crap dumps or whatever. Yeah. All right. Sorry, John, go ahead.
Oh, it's all good. All right. Louis Rock Concert City at Crossroads, Virginia, Weinberg Center for the Arts in Frederick, Maryland, Mud Club in New York, New York. This was an invite-only show that is now available on the 50 Heavy Metal Years of Music box set by Judas Priest that came out in 2021. Sorry. So, just to let you know about these following shows, they were playing with UFO, and it was either a co-headline or it would be UFO with special guest Judas Priest. That's how I took it by looking at the size of the set lists. So we have Houston Music Hall in Houston, Texas, Municipal Auditorium in Lubbock, Texas, Hemisphere Arena in San Antonio, Texas, Memorial Coliseum, Corpus Christi, Texas, to Starwood in West Hollywood, California, Bakersfield Civic Auditorium in Bakersfield, California, the Palladium in New York, New York, El Macombo in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, Memorial Hall in Kansas City, Kansas, Kiel Opera House in St. Louis, Missouri, the International Amphitheater in Chicago, Illinois,
Yeah.
Mecca Arena in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the Apollo Theater in Glasgow, Scotland, Manchester Apollo in Manchester, England, Newcastle City Hall, Newcastle, England, Hammersmith Odeon in London, England, and the Birmingham Odeon in Birmingham, England. Then they played US tour starting September 1 of 79, and they're opening for Kiss.
Right.
Or pushing Dynasty.
Dynasty. Right.
Or Dynasty or Dynasty, as they say in Australia. So Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum, Uniondale, New York, New Haven Veterans Memorial Coliseum, New Haven, Connecticut, the Spectrum in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Paramount Theater, Asbury Park, New Jersey, Allen County War Memorial Coliseum, Fort Wayne, Indiana, Seattle Center Coliseum, Seattle, Washington.
It's also interesting to point out, John, by this stage, Les Binks is already gone.
Yes,
He's already gone.
that's true.
Yeah, Dave Holland is now playing live. My buddy, I have some black and white photos that he took of Kiss Priest opening for Kiss on that tour, and it's Dave Holland. So Les Binks was already gone.
And that was due to that financial disagreement. Yeah, they wanted to screw Les out of getting paid for Unleashed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So he started on the US tour.
I tried to look up before our show what the actual date was.
Okay.
But it had to they probably couldn't have just summarily dumped them in the middle of a tour.
Right.
If there's a small break in there somewhere,
there was breaks.
Yeah, it probably happened when they went through that and he was gone and Dave was brought in from Trapeze and picked it up and was able to probably do some pre-tour rehearsing and things to pick up on the US leg of it.
Excellent.
Which makes sense.
It does. Awesome. All right. Okay, so P&E Garden Auditorium, Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, Santa Monica Civic Auditorium, Santa Monica, California. Then they started going back to the smaller venues. They went back to AG Hall, Halloween 79. For some of these shows, their opener was Axe. Does anyone remember Axe? Friday night at midnight, we're all going to
remember the name, yeah.
That was a catchy ass song.
Especially the way you sing it, John.
Thank you. Triangle Theater, Rochester, New York, Capitol Theater, Passaic, New Jersey, the Palladium in New York, New York, Point Blank opened that show. Then we have Messe Hall 8 in Hamburg, Germany. And when they went back to Europe, they were playing with AC/DC. So we have Circus Krone in Munich, Germany, Pavillon de Paris in Paris, France, or is it de Paris? Theatre de Verdure in Nice, France, Colston Hall in Bristol, England, Hammersmith Odeon, they went back to in London, England, March 15 of 80. And by this point, they're starting to play some songs that were about to be released on British Steel.
Right.
Yeah, that night, they debuted Breaking the Law and Grinder. Okay, they have Newcastle City Hall, Newcastle, England again. And at the Apollo Theater in Glasgow, Scotland, they debuted Living After Midnight. And then last date was Markthal in Hamburg, Germany. So as I mentioned before, Hellbent for Leather, second most played song according to Setlist FM. Green Man Alishi was their 8th most played song. Running Wild, 46. Delivering the Goods, 68. Rock Forever and Take on the World are tied for 94. Evil Fantasies is 97. Killing Machine is 101. The other songs, to the best of my knowledge, Before the Dawn, Rock Forever, and Burning Up were not played live.
Yeah.
Even when they did a tour of deep cuts a couple of years ago. They were playing more deep cuts off of like Painkiller and albums like that.
I must have this thing in me that I just love tracks that somehow the band just doesn't want to play live. I mean, not to be too tangential here, my favorite track on Number of the Beast is Invaders. I absolutely freaking love it. And they've never played that one either.
Yep.
I'm just like, and Burning Up's my favorite on Hellbent. So I'm like, go figure.
Yeah.
Exactly. Invaders was like the unofficial end of the Paul Di'Anno era because it sounded like something that would have been on those first two albums. And then you get into the Bruce era right on Children of the Damned.
Right.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. All right. So there we go.
All right, guys, you all just got a musical education 101 here from Peter Jones on his description of this album. And hopefully we all added some fun things to this. So we're gonna be you're gonna see these mugs next week when we do talk about Unleashed in the East and what we think of that album. Let's see, Peter, what other where else can we be seeing you popping up these days?
Oh, well, thank you. I don't have my own channel. I'm as they say, wandering minstrel who is graciously been asked by people like yourself and Peter Kerr on Daydream Nation. And like you said, I've done stuff with LP Tremors and Grant's Rock Warehouse. But you mostly find me on the Contrarians usually. So, yep. But thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you for doing this. This has been an absolute blast. Getting to pick that brain. Yeah, it's always a good thing to do that. So, John, what you got you're doing another deep dive series on a band. You're talking a little bit of Y&T now with Tim Derling, I believe.
Oh, yes, sir. And the first episode came out just yesterday, would have been Saturday, November 27. There's 10.
It's the only one I have. It's the only one I have in handy. So.
All right. Well, the Yesterday and Today album premiered on January 27. There'll be a show coming out each Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We've already recorded 4 shows. The reason I have Mean Streak up is we're going to record shows 5 and 6 next Sunday, and Mean Streak's number 5. So, and just to give you a little info here about the Contrarians, if you see some of the shows that have real interesting topics, those are Pete's. It's true. There's a lot of topics on there you would be like, where does this come from? Pete really goes like, there's a group of us on the Contrarians. It's a tier level thing. Like if you enter a certain tier, you can offer ideas. So, and then what happens is we vote on what we're going to do a show on. Some of the real interesting ones are Pete's.
Oh, you're kind. Thank you.
You're welcome, but it's absolutely true.
It's the truth. Yeah, it's absolutely the truth.
Yeah. Appreciate so, but yeah, the Contrarians, it's where we all met.
Yep.
Great place to be. But I have John and I will be continuing this series until at least June. I have a feeling maybe we'll be going.
It might be going into July, depending on what other side projects we get into. But
exactly. But yeah, I have that going on. I got a show going up. I got a show coming up with Peter Kerr on Rock Daydream Nation. I'll be filming in mid-February. We're going to be talking about some stuff that we normally don't get a chance to talk about. Let's just say we'll be talking about Ramones album that doesn't get a lot of love in mid-February. So a lot of good stuff on there. And Grant's Rock Warehouse, I'm on there pretty frequent, and I have a lot of stuff. John has a lot of stuff lined up with him as well. Yeah. So yep. Stay tuned. Thanks.
Yeah. Don't know when that Wilson Hawk album or show is going to drop, but that was one we just recorded. Very interesting album for anybody who has no idea what Wilson Hawk is all about. it's just a Richie Kotzen project that just never got a physical release. You know, it basically is a Philadelphia soul at its best. I mean, it's just really a beautiful soul album. It really is a good album. But for whatever reason, it never got a physical release, just a Bandcamp digital download, and that's it. So, but very much an underlooked album. Monday, this comes out Wednesday, so Monday the 29th is you'll see Tim Derling on no, yeah, Tim Derling is 1994. Have your barrel of popcorn. It's about a 2 hour 20-minute show, so it's a long one. But it's a great talk about our top 10 1994 albums. There's four of us on that. That's Tim, Jex Russell, and Matthew Phillips, along with Tim. So that was a good show. We did one on Rock Daydream Nation where we all talked about decline of Western civilization. I don't know when that's dropping, but again, y'all get your popcorn for that one because that was a pretty lengthy one too. But so there's that's about all you can really look for with as far as anything extra for me. But one thing we do know is you're going to see the three of us next week for Unleashed in the East. So like, share, subscribe, please comment. Join us all in the live chats, whatever you guys need to do. But, let us know what you think about the Year of the Priest series, what you think of each of these albums. You know, we love being able to interact with y'all. So until next week, John Klauser, Johnny Metal, the Metal Dad, for Peter Jones, for John the Music Nut. Rock on, rock forever. We'll see you next week.
Cheers.